A human inherited wealth and two beautiful wives from his alien friend Sci-Fi, HFY Story. Rin had learned long ago that space did not care about promises, plans, or prayers. It only cared about distance and silence. His cargo ship drifted along a thin trade lane far from the busy systems, its hull marked by old burns and patched metal. Rin sat alone in the cockpit, checking numbers that barely changed. Fuel was low, credits were lower, and the job paid just enough to keep him flying. He was not a hero. He was not important. He was a human trying to survive where humans were often ignored. The distress signal appeared suddenly, blinking weakly on the edge of his scanner. Most pilots would have ignored it. This sector was known for traps and fake calls meant to lure in soft targets. Rin hesitated, his hand hovering over the controls. He thought of the repairs he still owed, the food packs running out, and the warning messages posted at every station. Then he thought of his father's voice, long gone, saying that help given too late was the same as help never given. Rin turned the ship toward the signal. The source was a damaged trading vessel, its engines dark, its hull torn open like a wound. No weapons powered, no escorts nearby. Rin docked carefully, sealing his ship to the broken airlock. Inside, the lights were low and the air thin. He moved slowly, calling out in simple trade speech. He found the alien in the cargo bay, slumped against a crate, blood dark against pale skin. The alien was taller than Rin, with long arms and deep-set eyes that flickered open when Rin approached. Fear flashed there, then confusion. Rin raised his hands to show he meant no harm. He used a translator patch and spoke softly. The alien gave his name as Kahlo. He was a traitor, alone, ambushed by pirates who took what they wanted and left him to die. Rin could have taken what was left and gone. Many would have. Instead, he carried Kahlo back to his ship, sealed the wounds as best he could, and gave him water and heat. The medical scanner warned that the treatment would use most of Rin's supplies. Rin ignored it. The journey to the nearest station took 3 days. During that time, Kahlo drifted in and out of sleep. When he was awake, he watched Rin with quiet focus. Rin spoke about small things, about flying, about Earth skies he barely remembered, about how humans were not special, just stubborn. Kahlo listened. When he could speak, he asked why Rin had helped him. Rin shrugged. He said someone had to. By the time they reached the station, Kahlo was stable. Medics took over and Rin prepared to leave, expecting nothing. Kahlo stopped him, gripping his arm with surprising strength. He thanked Rin not with words but with a gesture that Rin did not understand but felt was important. They parted there. Rin returned to his lonely roots. Life went on, hard and quiet. Months passed. Then the message came. It arrived as an encrypted burst that nearly overloaded Rin's console. The sender code was unfamiliar, but the name inside froze him in place. Kahlo. The message was short and formal. It stated that Kahlo had passed under lawful declaration. It stated that Rin was named as primary inheritor. It ordered Rin to present himself at a listed system within a set time. Rin laughed at first. Then he checked the seal. Then he checked again. The message was real. He tried to ignore it. He told himself it was a mistake or a scam. Humans did not inherit alien estates. Humans barely owned anything out here. Still, the message repeated, each time more insistent. Against his better judgment, Rin plotted a course. The system was nothing like he expected. Massive, bright, guarded. Warships floated in tight formation around a world covered in green and silver cities. His small cargo ship was scanned, tagged, and escorted without question. When Rin landed, officials were waiting. Not soldiers, but figures in flowing attire, their eyes sharp. They spoke his name correctly. They treated him with careful distance, like someone dangerous or valuable. Rin was taken through halls larger than any station he had seen, walls carved with symbols that told stories he could not read. At the center, a chamber opened wide, filled with observers. At its heart stood a projection of Kahlo. Kahlo's recorded voice filled the space. He spoke of trade, of trust, of debts beyond credits. He spoke of Rin, the human who chose mercy without knowing reward. He named Rin as heir to all holdings, all authority, all responsibility. The chamber erupted. Voices clashed. Accusations flew. Rin stood frozen, his mind struggling to keep up. Then Kahlo's image turned and two figures stepped forward. They were not officials. They were not guards. They were clearly important. One stood tall and calm, her expression unreadable. The other held tension like a drawn blade, her eyes locked on Rin with open challenge. The council declared that under ancient law, they were bound to the inheritance as well. Not owned, not claimed, but entrusted. Their names were Lyra and Sina. Rin opened his mouth to refuse, to deny all of it. The words never came. The weight of the room pressed in. He realized that walking away was no longer an option. As the council called for judgment and delay, Rin felt something shift. Saving one life had pulled him into something vast and dangerous. He did not know if he could survive it. Outside the chamber, unseen by Rin, ships began to move. Old enemies had noticed the change. And far above the world, power watched a human who did not yet understand what he had inherited. Rin barely had time to gather his thoughts before the council led him into the heart of the estate. The building itself was alive with quiet energy. Walls shimmered slightly, and floors adjusted underfoot, guiding visitors along paths that were as much for comfort as for control. Rin had been inside impressive stations before, but nothing compared to this alien structure. It felt vast, endless, and aware. The council members gathered around a circular table at the center. They were tall, slender, and elegant, with skin tones ranging from soft silver to deep copper. Their eyes were sharp, cold, and constantly calculating. Rin could feel their judgment pressing down on him like gravity. A recording of Kahlo played once more. The voice was calm and measured. It explained that Rin had been chosen not because he was strong or skilled or clever, but because he had shown the one quality that mattered most to Kahlo: compassion. Rin looked at the two figures standing behind the projection. Lyra, tall and composed, observed him quietly. Her every movement suggested discipline and control. Sina, smaller but intense, glared at him with a mixture of suspicion and challenge. Rin sensed that they were not just witnesses. They were part of the inheritance, bound by Kahlo's decision. The council began speaking. Their words were precise, formal, and layered with meaning. They demanded to know why a human should inherit anything in a system where humans were considered outsiders, weak and inexperienced. Rin opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came. He had no words prepared. He only had honesty. "I only helped Kahlo," Rin said finally, his voice small but firm. "I did what I thought was right, that is all." The council exchanged looks. One member spoke sharply, accusing Rin of fraud, claiming he had manipulated the situation to steal Kahlo's wealth. Another argued that a human could not possibly understand the responsibilities of such power. Rin realized that no explanation would satisfy them. Only action would. Lyra stepped forward. She spoke softly, her voice calm but strong. "We will see if he is worthy," she said. "It is not our place to decide, but the law will test him." Sina's expression hardened. "I do not trust him. If he fails, we lose everything Kahlo left behind." The council outlined the test. Rin would have one cycle, the equivalent of several Earth weeks, to demonstrate that he could manage the inheritance. This meant understanding complex trade networks, negotiating with rival factions, and maintaining the stability of Kahlo's holdings. Any failure would result in the annulment of the inheritance and possible imprisonment. Rin felt a weight pressing on him heavier than any cargo he had ever carried. He had never managed an empire. He had never faced political opponents more intelligent and ruthless than any pirate he had encountered in space. He was a human, far from home, among beings who measured power differently. Still, Rin thought of Kahlo. The man had trusted him. He could not fail, not because he wanted the wealth or the power, but because Kahlo had believed in him. Over the next hours, Rin was introduced to the vast estate, its trading fleets, and the complex communication systems that linked planets, stations, and settlements. He struggled to understand the alien currency, the flow of resources, and the customs that governed these transactions. Even small mistakes could have massive consequences. Lyra and Sina observed quietly. Lyra's gaze was measured, analyzing Rin's every action. Sina's eyes followed him with barely concealed skepticism. Rin felt the pressure of their judgment as keenly as the council's. As Rin tried to absorb everything, a subtle warning appeared on one of the monitoring screens. Ships unknown to the estate's records were approaching the system. Their formation was irregular, suggesting stealth or piracy. Rin's heart sank. The inheritance was already drawing danger. The council concluded the session, leaving Rin alone with the two women and the vast network of systems he now had to oversee. Lyra spoke first. "You have much to learn, but you have courage. That counts for more than you realize." Sina's tone was sharp. "Courage alone will not save you. If you cannot survive the trial, you will not only fail Kahlo's trust, you will lose everyone who depends on you." Rin realized that these were not just words. They were the reality of this inheritance. He had wealth, power, and responsibility, but also enemies, dangers, and expectations he could barely comprehend. He sat at a control console, scanning the incoming fleet. Every decision he made now could have consequences far beyond anything he had faced. The room was silent except for the soft hum of machinery and the distant murmur of the estate's life systems. For the first time, Rin understood the true meaning of inheritance. It was not about credits or authority. It was about trust, responsibility, and the lives that now depended on his choices. Outside the windows, ships moved in the dark of space, some approaching with clear intent. Rin's journey had begun, not with choice but with necessity. Every step forward would be a test, every decision a measure of his worth. As he prepared to meet the first wave of challenges, Rin felt a strange clarity. He had saved one life out of compassion. Now he had to protect many, not for glory, not for profit, but because he could. And somewhere deep in the networks of the estate, unseen forces were already watching him, waiting to see if a human could survive what Kahlo had left behind. Rin took a deep breath, gripped the console, and began to act. The test had started, and there was no turning back. Rin had barely begun to understand the sprawling empire Kahlo had left him when the first real challenge appeared. The system's trade network was complex, far beyond anything he had managed in his years as a cargo pilot. Fleets of ships moved between planets, stations, and orbital platforms, carrying goods, passengers, and information. Every transaction was tied to dozens of other agreements, some binding legally, some morally, and many enforced by force. He tried to focus on the basics first, securing the estate, ensuring the workers were safe, and making sure the essential supplies were in place. He began sending messages across the network, introducing himself as Kahlo's heir and offering assurance that operations would continue without disruption. The replies ranged from polite curiosity to thinly veiled hostility. It was Lyra who first explained the subtleties. "You cannot just send messages and expect cooperation," she said. Her voice was calm, each word measured. "Allies must trust you, rivals must fear the consequences of betrayal, and neutral parties must see your fairness. It is a delicate balance." Rin nodded, though he felt overwhelmed. His experience with humans had taught him negotiation, but the scales here were different. Wealth was measured in fleets and entire settlements, loyalty was a currency, and deception was a tool used more often than honesty. Sina was less patient. She challenged every suggestion Rin made, questioning his knowledge of alien customs, his assumptions, and his instincts. At first, Rin felt irritated. He was being tested, yes, but the pressure from her scrutiny felt personal. Slowly, however, he realized she was forcing him to think, to weigh each action and consequence carefully. The first real threat came in the form of a blocked shipment. Cargo that had been scheduled to move between two planets disappeared from the network, its tracking signal wiped. Initial investigation revealed tampering by a rival trading family. They had no reason to fear a human heir, and their confidence made their moves bold. Rin spent hours analyzing logs, piecing together the route and attempting to find weaknesses in the network. Using simple logic and careful observation, he discovered the hidden transfer points and managed to reroute the shipment safely. The rival family had not expected a human to anticipate the system's complexity, and Rin realized that sometimes a fresh perspective was more powerful than experience. When he informed Lyra and Sina of the success, Lyra nodded silently, a rare smile touching her lips. Sina remained skeptical but made no immediate criticism. Rin felt a small surge of confidence. Perhaps he could manage this, yet the relief was short-lived. The following cycle, the estate's central data core registered a breach. Unknown actors had attempted to hack into the trade records, altering contracts and threatening to collapse the network. Rin's heart raced as he realized the scale of the attack. One mistake could undo all the progress he had made. He turned to Lyra and Sina. "We need to act fast. If they succeed, the entire estate could be in chaos." Lyra's expression was calm but serious. "You will need to learn quickly. Defensive measures, counterintelligence, and trust networks are not things you can improvise. But your human instincts, your willingness to act with fairness and honesty are assets. Use them." Together, they coordinated a response. Rin focused on identifying the intruders, point of entry, tracing signals, and re-establishing control over the compromised systems. Lyra managed the defensive protocols, while Sina coordinated communications with minor factions, ensuring that rumors of instability did not spread. By the end of the cycle, they had secured the estate, but the attempted breach left an undeniable mark. The rivals were watching, learning, and planning. Rin realized the inheritance was not just about management, it was survival. Every ally could become a competitor, every contract could be challenged, and every day could bring a new threat. Despite the challenges, Rin felt a growing connection to Lyra and Sina. Lyra's calm insight helped him see patterns in the chaos he had never noticed, while Sina's intensity forced him to act decisively and without hesitation. He had started to understand that this inheritance was not about power alone. It was about building trust, making choices under pressure, and accepting responsibility for the lives of others. Then, one evening, a private message arrived on Rin's console. It was anonymous, but the warning was clear. Kahlo's death had not been natural. Certain forces had orchestrated it to destabilize the estate and eliminate anyone who might inherit it. Rin's stomach tightened. The challenges he had faced so far were nothing compared to the danger approaching now. Rin shared the message with Lyra and Sina. Lyra's face darkened and Sina's eyes narrowed. "We suspected enemies would act, but this confirms it," Lyra said quietly. "You are not just managing trade, you are a target." Rin felt the full weight of the situation. He had survived by chance once, but this was no longer chance. This was war in disguise, a silent struggle for survival, and he was standing in the middle of it. As he stared out of the estate's observation windows at the stars beyond, Rin realized the inheritance carried not just wealth or authority, but danger, responsibility, and the lives of those who trusted him. Every decision mattered. Every mistake could cost more than money, it could cost lives. Rin clenched his fists. He had promised to help Kahlo once without knowing the consequences. Now, the universe was testing him again, on a scale he could barely comprehend. He had no choice but to rise to it, to face each challenge with the same determination that had once made him save a stranger in need. Outside, the alien sky shimmered with incoming ships, some bearing colors and insignias Rin did not recognize. They were not friendly. Their presence was a warning. The first real test of Rin's human resolve was about to begin, and the stakes were higher than he could have imagined. For the first time, Rin understood that being a human in this vast, alien system was both a disadvantage and a gift. His lack of experience made him vulnerable, but his honesty, ingenuity, and courage were tools no rival could predict. He would need all of them if he hoped to survive the trials ahead. And somewhere deep in the unknown reaches of the estate's communications network, those who had planned Kahlo's death were already moving, preparing to strike at Rin before he fully understood the power he had inherited. Rin woke to the hum of the estate, a quiet vibration that ran through the walls like a heartbeat. Nights in space were never restful, but this place had its own rhythm, alive and alert. He had barely slept since arriving, wrestling with contracts, communications, and the growing awareness that enemies were not waiting politely. They were planning. The day began with an alert. A minor faction in a nearby system had openly questioned Rin's authority. Their fleets blocked trade routes and demanded explanations, testing him for weakness. Rin studied the data, tracing fleet movements, scanning logs, and reading communications that shifted between languages, dialects, and trade codes. Each line of text could hide a threat or an opportunity. Lyra watched silently from the side, her calm presence anchoring him. "Do not rush," she advised. "Observe, understand, and then act. Impulsive action will cost more than hesitation." Sina, in contrast, paced, arms crossed, eyes scanning every screen. "Do not waste time observing. We must act before they gain confidence. A human hesitation is a weakness they will exploit." Rin realized that their perspectives mirrored two sides of the same coin: caution and action, reflection and force. He had to balance both to survive. He began drafting messages to the faction leaders, offering fairness, contracts, and reassurance, while simultaneously preparing defenses for the trade lanes. He knew from experience that the mere perception of preparedness could often deter aggression more than weapons themselves. Hours later, the first confrontation arrived. A fleet from the faction appeared in the system, moving to blockade a major shipping hub. Rin, with guidance from Lyra and Sina, issued orders that were both bold and unexpected. He coordinated smaller, faster vessels to navigate around the blockade, carrying essential goods, while sending messages to the rival fleet proposing temporary cooperation. The faction hesitated. A human managing such a system was unprecedented. They were cautious, unsure if this was a trap or genuine strategy. Rin seized the moment, arranging trade agreements with other minor factions to pressure the rivals into negotiation. By the end of the cycle, the blockade had lifted, not with fire or bloodshed, but with human ingenuity and decisive action. Rin realized that being a human gave him an advantage that few aliens expected: creativity in situations governed by rigid rules. However, the relief was brief. A new alert flashed on his console: an internal breach. Someone within the estate had attempted to manipulate contracts and divert resources. Rin's stomach tightened. If he could not trust his own systems, he could not survive the trials ahead. Lyra immediately joined him at the console, her expression unreadable. "We will find the source. The estate will not fail under our watch." Sina's glare was sharper. "If we fail, Kahlo's legacy is lost. You must act decisively." Rin focused on tracing the breach, analyzing the flow of information, and monitoring anomalies. Hours passed. He discovered subtle patterns indicating that the internal saboteur was highly skilled and familiar with the estate's systems. Someone close to Kahlo had turned against the Empire, perhaps intending to eliminate Rin before he fully understood his responsibilities. Rin convened a private meeting with Lyra and Sina. "We cannot confront this like a normal dispute," he said. "They are trying to destroy everything Kahlo built, and they know how to hide. We need a plan that combines all our strengths: observation, strategy, and decisive action." Lyra nodded. "Agreed. We will isolate the breach, secure the critical systems, and reroute operations without alerting the saboteur. Precision is essential," Sina added, "and we must anticipate their next move. They will test every weakness. You cannot hesitate." Working together, the three of them implemented a layered strategy. Rin monitored the data, Lyra secured the systems, and Sina coordinated the estate's personnel to prevent leaks and maintain order. Slowly, the saboteur's influence was isolated. Contracts and resources were restored. The estate was saved, but Rin knew this was only the beginning. As the cycle ended, Rin realized the scope of what he had inherited. Wealth was nothing compared to responsibility. Authority was meaningless without trust. And survival required constant vigilance, creativity, and courage. Just as he prepared to rest, a private communication arrived, encrypted and unsigned. The message was simple: Kahlo's death was orchestrated, and the real threats had only just begun. Rin felt the weight of the words pressing down. His trials were not over. They had only grown more dangerous. Rin looked at Lyra and Sina. Lyra's eyes reflected quiet determination. Sina's gaze burned with intensity. Together, they were the bridge between him and Kahlo's legacy. But he understood now that survival would demand more than guidance. He would need to adapt, learn, and act beyond anything he had imagined. The stars outside the estate shimmered coldly, distant and indifferent. But Rin, a single human, was now at the center of an empire, tested by enemies seen and unseen. Every decision, every action, every moment mattered. And Rin knew that the universe would be watching to see if a human could truly inherit the trust of the stars. With a steady breath, Rin turned back to the consoles. The estate depended on him. The lives of Lyra, Sina, and countless others depended on him. And beyond the screens, hidden in the darkness of space, forces were already moving, preparing the next test of his courage, ingenuity, and human resolve. Rin clenched his fists. He had promised to honor Kahlo once. Now he would face the galaxy itself to uphold that promise. Rin had thought he understood the challenges of the estate, but the new cycle revealed just how dangerous his inheritance truly was. Word had spread across the neighboring systems that a human now controlled Kahlo's empire, and that alone was enough to spark tension. Fleets that had been neutral now positioned themselves for advantage, minor factions tested trade agreements, and spies moved unseen among the estate's personnel. Every day was a puzzle, every choice carried consequence. The morning began with a report of unusual activity in one of the outer shipping lanes. Rin studied the scans. A group of ships had formed a blockade, their movements deliberate, calculated. Unlike the previous attempt, this fleet was larger, faster, and coordinated with signals suggesting advanced intelligence. The threat was no longer subtle, it was direct. Lyra observed silently, her eyes analyzing patterns Rin could barely see. "They are testing your response," she said. "Their goal is not to attack immediately but to measure to see how you handle pressure." Sina's tone was sharper. "Testing does not last long. You must act before they find weakness." Rin realized both were right. Observation alone would not suffice, but rash action could trigger disaster. He decided to use the strategy that had served him before, misdirection combined with calculated force. He dispatched fast-response ships carrying essential cargo on alternate routes, while projecting orders that suggested the estate's forces were fully engaged and prepared for battle. The rival fleet hesitated. They had expected hesitation or panic. Instead, they found a human heir who remained calm under pressure, balancing caution with boldness. Their calculations faltered and the blockade began to break apart, one ship at a time. While this unfolded, Rin turned his attention to internal threats. He had uncovered more subtle signs of sabotage, small manipulations in contracts, attempts to sway workers, and falsified reports. It was becoming clear that some enemies had infiltrated deeply, aiming not just to disrupt trade, but to destroy Kahlo's legacy from within. Lyra worked alongside Rin, identifying anomalies and tracing their origins, while Sina coordinated personnel, ensuring that key resources remained under trusted supervision. Rin began to notice a pattern. The internal and external attacks were connected, suggesting a single, highly skilled adversary orchestrating chaos across multiple fronts. Despite the pressure, Rin began to understand the true meaning of Kahlo's gift. Wealth and power were meaningless without integrity, without trust, without the ability to act decisively in the face of uncertainty. He was learning to combine human ingenuity with alien strategy, a hybrid approach no rival could predict. Then the final warning arrived. A private message, encrypted and anonymous, confirmed Rin's fears. Kahlo's death had been orchestrated by a coalition of factions that sought to seize the empire. The message contained coordinates, hinting at the location of the masterminds behind the attacks. It was both a threat and an opportunity. Rin shared the information with Lyra and Sina. "We cannot wait for them to act," he said. "If we strike now, we can prevent the next wave and secure the estate for everyone who depends on it." Lyra nodded. "Agreed, but we must be precise. Any misstep could cost us everything." Sina's eyes burned with determination. "Then we act together. No hesitation." The next hours were tense. Rin coordinated fleets, prepared defenses, and planned communications to expose the conspirators. He had to ensure that the message reached the right factions, those who would stand with him, while keeping enemies off balance. Every move required calculation, courage, and trust in his instincts. When the confrontation finally came, it was swift and decisive. The rival fleets attempted to strike at a critical hub, but Rin's preparations allowed his forces to respond with speed and efficiency. The internal saboteur was identified and neutralized without endangering innocent workers. Contracts and trade agreements were reinforced, and transparency broadcast across the network. The conspirators, expecting chaos, found none. The human heir had acted with integrity, intelligence, and courage. Their plan collapsed, their influence exposed, and their fleets withdrew in disarray. In the aftermath, Rin walked through the estate, observing the bustling activity of ships, workers, and personnel. He saw Lyra overseeing operations with calm precision and Sina coordinating security with unwavering intensity. Both had earned his trust, and he theirs. For the first time, Rin allowed himself to feel the weight of what had been achieved. He had survived the trials, defended the estate, and proven that a human could lead where others doubted. He realized that the inheritance was more than wealth or authority. It was a test of character, a challenge to grow beyond fear and limitation. As Rin looked out over the stars, he thought of Kahlo. The man had trusted him, and that trust had carried him through dangers he could not have faced alone. Lyra and Sina chose to remain by his side, not because of tradition, but because they had witnessed his courage, his honesty, and his willingness to act for the good of others. The stars above the estate shimmered with quiet promise. Rin understood now that the true power he inherited was not credits or fleets, but the ability to inspire loyalty, trust, and cooperation across worlds. Humanity had been underestimated, but Rin had shown that a single human, acting with integrity and courage, could shape the balance of the galaxy. And though challenges would continue to arise, Rin knew he would face them, not alone, but with allies who had chosen to stand with him. He had promised to honor Kahlo once, And now he had fulfilled that promise, securing a legacy not through force, but through wisdom, courage, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. The galaxy had watched, and it had learned. A human could inherit more than wealth. A human could inherit trust, respect, and the future itself. Rin took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the estate beneath his feet, the hum of ships in orbit, and the quiet determination of those who stood with him. The trials were over, but the work had just begun. And Rin was ready.